So, what could a single drop of water in the entire planet possibly have in common? Well, it's this. They are both complete living systems. These intricate webs where every single piece, big or small, is connected. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and explore the very connections that hold our world together.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big question. What even is an ecosystem? Then we'll get into the two key parts, the living or biotic components and the non-living abiotic stage they live on. After that, we'll see how they interact in this kind of delicate dance. And finally, we'll take a hard look at our own role in this whole system. Okay, first up, we throw the word ecosystem around all the time, right? But what are we actually talking about? Let's pin down a really clear definition.
So I'll ask you, when you hear that word ecosystem, what immediately pops into your head? Maybe a lush, vibrant jungle, a sprawling coral reef, or even a stark, beautiful desert. And yeah, those are all perfect examples. But the idea is actually so much bigger than that.
Okay, so here's the textbook definition. An ecosystem is a geographic area where all the living organisms and the non-living components are interconnected, and they all function as one single unit. The most important idea here is that everything is working together, from the tiniest microbe to the largest mountain.
And the scale of this stuff, it's just mind-blowing. See, an ecosystem isn't just a forest or a lake. It can be as tiny as the whole universe of microorganisms living in a single drop of pond water, or it can be as vast and complex as our entire planet. It's the same fundamental pattern, just repeating at every single level of existence. It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
All right, let's move on. Every ecosystem is made of two main parts. So let's start with the first one, the living components, which scientists call biotic factors.
This one's pretty straightforward. Biotic factors are basically everything in an ecosystem that is or ever was alive. We're talking plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, you name it. That includes us, by the way. The name itself comes from the Greek for with life, which, says it all.
So inside any ecosystem, all these living things have one of three major jobs to do. First, you've got the producers. Think plants. They make their own food, usually using sunlight. Next up are the consumers, who get their energy by eating producers or, other consumers. And finally, you have the decomposers. These guys are the absolutely vital cleanup crew, breaking down all the dead stuff and returning those nutrients right back into the system.
Let's make this a little more real. Picture an apple tree. That's our producer, growing apples. A deer, a consumer, wanders by and snacks on them. Later on, a wolf, another consumer, hunts that deer. But then, when that wolf eventually dies, decomposers like bacteria and fungi go to work. They break down its remains, sending all those vital nutrients back into the soil. And what do those nutrients do? Well, they help a brand new apple tree grow, and the whole cycle just starts all over again. It's a perfect, continuous loop of energy.
Okay, so that covers the living actors. But, every play needs a stage to perform on. So now we're going to explore the non-living foundation of the ecosystem, the abiotic factors.
And just like the name suggests, right? If biotic means with life, then abiotic means without life. These are all the physical and chemical parts of the environment. All the things that were never alive, but that life absolutely 100% depends on.
And believe me, the list is long. We're talking about sunlight, which provides all the energy, water, the universal solvent of life, the very air we breathe, the soil that plants grow in, the local climate and temperature, even the altitude and the shape of the land itself. These abiotic factors, they set the fundamental rules for what kind of life can possibly thrive in any given area.
And now we get to what is maybe the most important part of this whole thing, because these two categories, the biotic and the abiotic, they aren't just separate lists of things. No way. They are locked together in this intricate, delicate dance, constantly influencing each other. Think of it this way. The abiotic factors set the rules of the game. The amount of rainfall, the average temperature, the type of soil, all these non-living conditions, they dictate exactly what kind of life can survive there and how it has to behave to do it.
And you can see this amazing relationship absolutely everywhere. In a hot, dry desert, life evolves to store water. In the freezing Arctic, animals develop thick fur and plants learn to go dormant. Way down in the deep ocean where there's no sunlight, creatures literally evolve to make their own light. So the key insight here is that life doesn't just exist in an environment, it is profoundly shaped by it.
And that really gets to the heart of it all. Almost every single feature is interrelated.
In a healthy, stable ecosystem, this constant back and forth between the living and non-living creates a natural state of balance, or equilibrium.
Which of course brings us to a really critical part of the story, us. How do we, as humans, fit into this picture? Well, all too often, we're the ones who come in and tip the scales of that delicate balance.
Now, ecosystems are incredibly resilient, but they are not invincible. Our actions can drastically change these natural cycles, sometimes with devastating consequences for both the living and the non-living parts of the system.
Let's take phosphorus, for example. It's a totally natural, abiotic nutrient found in rocks, and is essential for healthy soil. That's the balanced natural cycle. But when we mine massive amounts of it to make fertilizer, the excess washes off the fields and runs into our waterways. This causes these huge algal blooms that can literally suck all the oxygen out of the water and choke the life out of a lake or a river.
And it can be something even more mundane than that. Think about road salt in the winter. It's just an abiotic factor, rock salt, that we introduce to melt ice on the roads. But all that salt has to go somewhere, right? It washes into nearby streams and ponds, dramatically increasing the salinity of the water. And that can harm or even kill the freshwater organisms that just aren't adapted to live in salty conditions. It's a simple action with a serious, serious ripple effect.
So, after all this, what's the ultimate takeaway? Well, it's that to protect the world that we all depend on, we first have to understand it. Recognizing that the living and the non-living are two inseparable halves of the same whole, well, that's not just some interesting scientific idea. It is the crucial first step toward keeping our planet in balance.
And that leaves us with one final thought. Next time you step outside, just look around. Really look. What are the key biotic players in your neighborhood? The plants, the animals, the insects? And what are the defining abiotic conditions? The climate, the soil, the water? Once you start looking for it, I promise you will see that intricate, invisible web of life everywhere. So I'll leave you with this. What does the ecosystem look like where you live?